Section 11. Revolution and the Institution of Hostages. Stalin arrests and shoots the children of his opponents after these opponents have been themselves executed under false accusations. With the help of the institution of family hostages, Stalin compels those Soviet diplomats to return from abroad who permitted themselves an expression of doubt upon the infallibility of Yagoda or Yezhov. The moralists of Norveg consider it necessary and timely to remind us on this occasion of the fact that Trotsky in 1919 also introduced a law upon hostages. But here it becomes necessary to quote literally. "The detention of innocent relatives by Stalin is disgusting barbarism, but it remains a barbarism as well when it was dictated by Trotsky." Here is the idealistic moralist in all his beauty. His criteria are as false as the norms of bourgeois democracy. In both cases, parity is supposed where in actuality there is not even a trace of it. We will not insist here upon the fact that the decree of 1919 led scarcely to even one execution of relatives of those commanders whose perfidy not only caused the loss of innumerable human lives, but threatened the revolution itself with direct annihilation. The question in the end does not concern that. If the revolution had displayed less superfluous generosity from the very beginning, hundreds of thousands of lives would have been saved. Thus or otherwise, I carry full responsibility for the decree of 1919. It was a necessary measure in the struggle against the oppressors. Only in the historical content of the struggle lies the justification of the decree, as in general the justification of the whole civil war, which too can be called, not without foundation, disgusting barbarism. We leave to some Emil Ludwig or his ilk the drawing of Abraham Lincoln's portrait with rosy little wings. Lincoln's significance lies in his not hesitating before the most severe means once they were found to be necessary in achieving a great historic aim posed by the development of a young nation. The question lies not even in which of the warring camps caused or itself suffered the greatest number of victims. History has different yardsticks for the cruelty of the Northerners and the cruelty of the Southerners in the Civil War. A slave owner who through cunning and violence shackles a slave in chains, and a slave who through cunning or violence breaks the chains, let not the contemptible eunuchs tell us that they are equals before a court of morality. After the Paris Commune had been drowned in blood, and the reactionary knaves of the whole world dragged its banner in the filth of vilification and slander, there were not a few democratic Philistines who, adapting themselves to reaction, slandered the communards for shooting 64 hostages headed by the Paris Archbishop. Marx did not hesitate a moment in defending this bloody act of the Commune. In a circular issued by the General Council of the First International, in which seethes the fiery eruption of lava, Marx first reminds us of the bourgeoisie adopting the institution of hostages in the struggle against both colonial peoples and their own toiling masses, and afterwards refers to the systemic execution of the commune captives by the frenzied reactionaries, continuing, "The commune, to protect the captives' lives, was obliged to resort to the Prussian practice of securing hostages. The lives of the hostages had been forfeited over and over again by the continued shooting of prisoners on the part of the Versailles. How could they be spared any longer after the carnage with which McMahon's praetorians celebrated their entry into Paris? Was even the last check upon the unscrupulous ferocity of bourgeois governments the taking of hostages to be made a mere sham of?" Thus Marx defended the execution of hostages, although behind his back in the General Council sat not a few Fenner Brockways, Norman Thomases, and other Otto Bauers. But so fresh was the indignation of the world proletariat against the ferocity of the Versailles that the reactionary moralistic bunglers preferred to keep silent in expectation of times more favorable to them, which, alas, were not slow in appearing. Only after the definite triumph of reaction did the petty bourgeois moralists, together with the trade union bureaucrats and anarchist phrasemongers, destroy the First International. When the October Revolution was defending itself against the united forces of imperialism on a 5,000-mile front, the workers of the whole world followed the course of the struggle with such ardent sympathy that in their forums it was extremely risky to indict the disgusting barbarism of the institution of hostages. Complete degeneration of the Soviet state and the triumph of reaction in a number of countries was necessary before the moralists crawled out of their crevices to aid Stalin. If it is true that the reparations safeguarding the privileges of the new aristocracy have the same moral value as the revolutionary measures of the liberating struggle, then Stalin is completely justified if the proletarian revolution is not completely condemned. Seeking examples of immorality in the events of the Russian Civil War, Messieurs moralists find themselves at the same time constrained to close their eyes to the fact that the Spanish Revolution also produced an institution of hostages, at least during that period when it was a genuine revolution of the masses. In the craftiness, in other words, without lying and deceit. May the Gironditers dare not attack the Spanish workers for their disgusting barbarism. It is only because the ground of the Pyrenean Peninsula is too hot for them. It is considerably more convenient to return to 1919. This is already history. The old men have forgotten and the young ones have not yet learned. For the same reason, Pharisees of various hues return to Kronstadt and Machno with such obstinacy. Here exists a free outlet for moral effluvia.